Good morning. Today is May 14th, 2025. It is 9:36, and this is the Budget and Public Employees Committee. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderman Browning.
Good morning. Today is May 4th.
Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Present.
Alderman Devotie.
Present.
Chair Aldrich.
Present.
Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Tyus. We have 4 present. We have quorum.
Thank you. With that, we have established quorum. Next order of business is approval of minutes. We don't have any. We do the approval each week just to make it easy on the clerk. Item number 4 is board bills for review, which is board bill number 1, which is the FY26 city budget. We have no resolutions for review and committee discussion today. We will hear from the BPS, Board of Public Service. Around here, we are used to saying acronyms, but for the public, Board of Public Service and all the departments within it. After that, we will hear from the Board of Elections, and then we will hear from the Health Department. With that, we can go ahead and get started with the director. If you just want to come on up and state your name, introduce us to all our amazing, fine city employees that make our city go round and round each day, and then just present your budget. And I know you have different departments that will come up, and you can just call them up in order whichever way.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Rich.
Could you just turn your microphone on, Mr. Chairman, or Commissioner? It's a little button right here on the top. Yep. There you go. And then just talk a little bit into it.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Rich Bradley, President of the Board of Public Service. Thank you, Chair and Budget Committee, for letting us speak to you today. So the Board of Public Service is comprised of 5 divisions, and I am going to walk through each division. I will have my division head up here with me. I will hit the highlights of each division. If there are specific questions you have, the division heads will be glad to answer those. So to make this a little bit more expedient, what I would like to do is start kind of in reverse order and go with the shorter budgets of Soldiers Memorial and special events. So numerically, we're going to work backwards, more or less, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to cover Soldiers Memorial, which is Division 930. So I'd like to introduce you to Linnea Magnuson. Dr. Linnea Magnuson, she is the superintendent of Soldiers Memorial. The Soldiers Memorial is the military museum across Market Street. We are in a partnership with the Missouri Historical Society, and the city of St. Louis owns the building and the vast collection of all the artifacts that go along with it. So Dr. Magnuson keeps her eye on all that for us, as well as chairs the Soldiers Memorial Commission. So as far as the budget goes, first of all, I want to say that there are 2 positions with Soldiers Memorial. There were last year, there are this year. We're not adding or subtracting any. Our budget request was for $157,938. We were allocated $160,917. And so if you look at the budget, all the changes are above the line or in personnel expenses. Everything below personnel expenses, as far as materials and contractual and so forth, are all flat. There are absolutely no changes from last year or previous year. So I will stop there and see if you have any questions for Dr. Magnuson.
All righty. That was probably the quick one. So I'll just go in order of seniority. Alderman Browning.
No questions. Just want to say, I really appreciate the stewardship of that memorial. I think it's a wonderful resource and beautiful museum.
Thank you. Alderman Velasquez. Alderwoman Velasquez.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Devotie.
I don't have any questions, but I would echo Alderman Downing. I was over at the memorial within the last 6 months. Absolutely beautiful museum. So thank you for your work.
Second, my colleagues, actually, I didn't know that we owned it from, so always great to get educated each day, and thank you for all the work that you do to make the museum just, one, to honor people that have served our country, but to just keep that building up and going to make it a beautiful building that people love to come and see. I stay right across the street from it, so it's enjoyable to look out the window and see the memorial, so thank you for all you do.
Thank you. The next division that I would like to highlight is Special Events Division, which is 914. I would like to introduce you to the Special Events Program Executive, Travis Hauser. And so this division has 2 people as well. They had 2 people last year. We're requesting 2 people this year. There are no changes in personnel. Exactly the same discussion as Soldiers Memorial. If you'll note that all the changes in the budget, we have requested $200,432, and we received $204,444. That $4,000 addition is all on personnel expenses. Above the line, all the items below the line, material, supplies, contractual, so forth, are exactly the same as last year, and there are no changes. So if you have any questions for special events, we will entertain them.
Alderman Browning?
Again, no questions. Just really appreciate special events and everything they do. I always find the whole process to be relatively quick, and I think that it obviously brings some really great things to our city. So really appreciate the work.
Alderman Velasquez?
Thank you, Chairman. Just want to say thank you to Mr. Hauser. And I just want to use this opportunity. It's not so much, and yes, we appreciate the special events and all the work that you do. And I know I always email you and you reply super quickly. Do you have a moment to just talk about the online website that special events stood up this past year, and if there's any plan for expanding that, or if there's any additions to the budget that are related to that?
Of course. And every commissioner just that comes up, if you end up speaking, just state your first and last name and then the department you represent. We have it for the record.
Sure. I'm Travis Hauser, the Special Events Program Executive and the Director of the Office of Special Events. So we did go through a level of modernization in the last year. You'll see, I think on some of the screens in City Hall, there was a couple announcements about it. It's One Stop Gov. One Stop Gov is intended to expand to a lot of city services, and it was piloted with the Office of Special Events. Essentially what we did is the office was a very kind of paper and pencil office for a long time. The application process was fairly dated. Applicants needed to use multiple not so user-friendly PDFs. If they used a street or a park and they needed a special event permit, they would oftentimes have to fill out 3 different applications, and they would have to write their name, their email 3 different times, the date of the event 3 different times. So One Stop Gov, we're utilizing a Salesforce platform, which is the online process that the applicants see. And now if they use a street and a park and they need to fill out the special event application, they really just go through one workflow. And they will answer, what's your email, one time, and they don't really see that they're filling out multiple applications, because if they say they're not using a park, we're not going to ask them questions about what they're going to do in the park. So they'd fill out one workflow, and then it is fairly responsive to what it is they're doing. If they're going to have alcohol, then we tell them what they need for alcohol. So that is One Stop Gov. It has modernized the applicant's process, and we've received a lot of positive feedback from individuals. The other big update about that is that previously we did not accept credit card payments. So it was not uncommon for event organizers to take a half day off of work, to take their checks to all the individual departments, which may be in 3 or 4 different buildings. Now they can pay for their street permit, their park permit, and their special event application fee via credit card, and they can do that really at any time that we make it available to pay. So we implemented credit card payments. We streamlined the workflow. It's now an online user-friendly process. They can save their applications and start it at a later date. And that's really was the primary focus and what One Stop Gov is. So the way I explain it right now is we really improved the applicant's process. We're still learning a handful of things, but we've received a lot of positive feedback. We've improved their process. We've also, now that Salesforce application process that the applicants use then gets integrated into CityWorks, which is the legacy software that the city uses. A lot of departments use that in different forms. And so that Salesforce online one-stop gov application will then integrate into CityWorks. And then we, the city departments, can do our work through that system. We're still working out a lot of the processes internally. I think we really did a good job with the applicant side. We've done a pretty good job with the department side, but now we're really focusing on improving the department's processes. And what I mean by that is there's some automation features that we should be implementing, and then it should help improve the workflow for the departments, and it should hopefully improve some of our reporting capabilities. Our reporting capabilities were fairly difficult in the past, with it being a fairly paper pencil process. As far as the budget is concerned and how that's budgeted, since One Stop Gov is really intended to be a citywide service, and it was piloted with the Office of Special Events, the budgeting for that was not something that was a part of the Office of Special Events budget. That was led by the previous administration, and I don't really know how it was budgeted for. I know a lot of that lives with the ITSA team, but it was not, you would not see specific, like the Office of Special Events now has this added line item for this software or this process. And again, the reason for that is because the intention is that a lot of city services will then start to come on to One Stop Gov. So if you need to go pull a liquor license or something else, you would, in theory, be able to do that through One Stop Gov in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. That answers my question. I was going to ask. It doesn't look like it's in this budget. One final question for you. I really appreciate all the work that you do. When you say it's going to be easy, and I know that's not a budget-related question, but I will take the moment to ask. When you say that it's going to be easier to do reporting, does that mean that we can follow up with you and just sort of see, I guess, an analysis of like what kind of, what are the most requested special events and just sort of things like, I guess, benchmark or things like that for the city?
That is my hope. So when we built the applicant's application, we do have in the beginning of the process where they have to select as many event types that apply to them. And we have, I think, 4 or 5 event types. One, you could select a run, walk, ride. We kind of lump those together. Another one is like a festival utilizing a street, a festival utilizing a park. I don't remember all of those categories, but they're fairly broad categories. And my hope is that we can then run reports of how many run, walk, rides did we permit in 2025? And we can get a glimpse into that. And how many festivals did we permit that utilize a street? We can run a report on that. So yes, I'm hoping it gives us better insight. The reason I say hope, and we're getting there, still working out a lot of kind of the back end processes and basically the data conversion from Salesforce into CityWorks. And my thought is that basically we're in the peak of our season right now, inundated with applications. Our focus right now is getting people's applications processed and their events permitted. And my goal is in the fall, when we start to quiet down a little bit, we can really examine what that reporting looks like and start to run some general reports on a regular basis of, what events were permitted per ward and how many run, walk, and rides did we permit in that year.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I will probably be following up in the fall to see if we can run some reports for the ward because I like data. But thank you for your time and for being here.
You're welcome.
Alderman Devoti?
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. I don't.
Great.
Thank you also, Mr. Hauser. You've one of those apartments representing kind of downtown, a lot of events, run through downtown, and being new, you have just been super helpful to make sure whatever paperwork those events need that has to come through my office to you actually get done. So I appreciate it. And I think speaking of special events, there will be, if I can take a moment to do a plug, there'll be a special event this weekend or this Friday, City Social Downtown, Friday, May 16th from 5 to 10 p.m. on Wash Ave and 14th Street. It's always a good time. I think that's before I actually seen you before. I had seen you at one of those events. Had some really nice shoes, and you're even though it's two of you, you do really great work in that department. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so Rich Bradley back. And next I will talk about Division 900, which is the Board of Public Service Office of the President. And I would like to introduce you Kim Maloney. Kim is the Fiscal Operations Supervisor. So she will be able to answer any particular questions that you may have, and I may as well. So the division itself has 46 individuals. Last year, it has 46 this year. It's 44 by 1010, but all accounts, it's 46. So personnel-wise, we remain flat over what we had last year. The budget that we requested was $3,581,765, and we received $3,092,462, so about $489,000 less than what we requested. What I want to say is that generally, again, just like the other two, the issue is in the personnel section above the line, up top, personnel services. There were some numbers that were transposed and moved around, and the budget division gives us those numbers. So that, other than just a couple of other very, very small items in the budget for, some laptops and some safety equipment, things along those lines, our budget remains very much the same as it has in the past history. So no real big ups or downs. So any questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
All right, and just a fun fact. So it looks like Board of Public Service, it looks like about 0% go to Soldier Memorial, 1% to the Office of Special. 9% of your budget is the President's Office, and then 44% is Fleets Management, and then the 46% is Equipment Management. Just giving a little information, which total budget comes to about $43.2 million, but right now we're talking about the President's Office. With that, I will go in line of seniority. Alderman Browning.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask this, but I wanted to dive into a little bit the Capital Committee. Is that a question I can ask?
You can, and
time?
I should have probably clarified, and pardon me, BPS is the planning, design, and construction of major capital projects as well as ward capital. So yes, you are spot on.
Okay, so my question is just about the GOB 23 monies. It looks like we haven't spent any, and I was wondering why that was.
Okay, so the 2023 GOB money that had been allocated to date was $21 million. That was allocated through Ordinance 71661. A GOB, you have a life cycle of 5 years to spend that money. We have expended so far about $5.1 million. Just about every project that is in that GOB, $21 million, has been either started in design, is ready for construction, but they are in process right now. Now, the other part of that GOB that you read in the book is not been allocated by the capital committee yet. So that money, that $24 million, I believe was the number, the remaining balance of that $50 million GOB is still sitting out there. So at some point here, the capital committee will look at the capital needs inventory, which I'm sure you're aware of what that is. City's capital needs inventory, 500 plus million, $140 million or so of critical capital needs. They will look at the critical list and prioritize what comes out of that 20.
Thank you. That is a really helpful answer. On that note, I'm particularly concerned about the Union Lindell Bridge. I think the design that we ended up with is wonderful. I like it a lot, but I'm concerned because it depends on $18 million of federal money that just reading the tea leaves seems like we're not going to get. Is there contingency plans for if we do not receive federal match money for these kinds of projects?
So generally what I'm hearing is that the Surface Transportation Program at the moment, and I sit on the Transportation Planning Commission for East-West Gateway, I'm hearing that those transportation grants are still alive and they have not been removed at the time. At the moment, the Lindell Union Bridge over Forest Park and Metrolink is in the design phase, and it is substantially moving along, as you said. So the commentary about a plan B would be is if for some odd reason that those federal funds were removed, we would have to look at the GOB. We would have to look at capital. We would have to look at any other funding sources that the city might have to do that. We haven't done it yet, simply because the money's still alive at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I think when I look at, capital needs, critical infrastructure needs, that bridge did result in someone's death a few years ago. And I think it's one of those things where we've got to make sure those projects still happen. So I know your office works really hard on making sure that these projects are all viable. And, I just remain open to working with you and figuring out how we can fund these things that are critical needs in our city. So I appreciate that. One more question on major projects here. On line item detail, it's page 413. There's a major project in the major projects and contracts and services line item. What is that project?
And are you talking about, Alderman, the $1,856,000?
I don't have the book in front of me, but I think that is what I'm talking about.
I think so. Look like it's coming out of the Economic Development Sales Tax Fund, Fund 1120.
I will have to look into that and get back to you, Alderman. I don't have a defined answer for that off the top of my head.
No worries, that's not expected, and I do appreciate it. Last couple questions I have for you is that it looks like the department asked for 2 program specialists, one, but got a program manager 1 position instead. Is that going to make up for the lack of program specialists, or is there still a need there?
Good morning, Kim Maloney, Fiscal Operations Manager for BPS. And
If you could talk a little bit into the mic.
Sorry, Alderman Browning. So we've addressed this with the budget division, and it was sort of an oversight. There were 2 program specialists, ones, and if you look at the program manager one, the funds for that position are the same as the program specialist. So actually, only 1 program specialist was deleted, and then the names were just, mixed up a bit. So there's still 1 program specialist and no program manager 1.
Great,
If
thank you.
that makes sense. Okay, thanks.
Okay, and last question I have, and this might be another transposing error, is that the department had asked for $50,000 for per performance funding, but it seems like they were awarded 100,000. Was that needed, or is 50,000 enough, or what's the need there?
We will make do with 50,000. I think everybody here knows that we have had a lot of older employees transition out and retire. And so our $50,000 is for a couple of key positions that come in and help the new people fill in their positions, help them understand the very difficult and challenging processes. So we will make do with it. But again, because of an attrition rate of older employees with a lot of knowledge, specialized knowledge, 40 years of knowledge, we need them to be flexible to come back and help with new people.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I don't have any more questions. I just want to do a quick shout out to my ward capital liaison, Andrew Riganti, and the whole rest of your team. I really appreciate the work you all do with us and just find the quality of work to be exemplary. So I really appreciate it. And that's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, President Bradley. Thank you, Kim. I actually have no questions at this time. I know I'll have other questions for other departments. I just want to echo my colleagues in saying thanks. I know that you have a high volume of work, and yes, also shout out to Andrew Riganti, who manages to always answer my emails, no matter how random they are, and that's very much appreciated. So thank you.
Alderman Devotie.
Good morning, Mr. Bradley. I guess while we're at it, I'll also shout out Mr. Riganti. He's been key as I'm getting my feet underneath me. So no, he has been extremely helpful. And I do appreciate you answering my handful of calls in the last 30 days. I don't have any specific questions directly on the budget, but while we're here, for those folks in the Fifth Ward, specifically the Hill, that are listening, can you address where we stand with respect to the Southwest Avenue Bridge? I know that's something you and I spoke about, but while folks at home might be listening, it might be good if they heard directly from you where that project stands. That's a hot button topic, as you're well aware.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alderman, for that question. So the Columbia Southwest Bridge is deep in design. It is ready, almost ready for construction. We have approximately one temporary construction easement that is remaining on that project before we can actually put the project out to bid. We've worked very closely with many of the businesses in your ward that surround that business. We know that that is a vital artery to get people to the Hill, to their businesses. We understand that. We just have to get this one final issue resolved. And just so everybody knows, the temporary construction easement is not even a taking of property. It is a permission for us to work on your property while we're building the project. So we have a situation where we have a property owner that doesn't exactly understand that. They think we're taking property. We cannot get them or their attorney to understand that. We're working through legal processes now and hope that they will come to the table with us so that we can bid this important project.
I appreciate that explanation. I think that is important for folks to realize that we're not talking about a permanent taking of property. Rather, we're talking about a use for a specific period of time in order to complete this very important project for both folks in the Hill as well as Southwest Garden. Is that fair?
Yes, sir, and a compensation to do such.
Understood. And there has been an offer, as I understand it.
Correct.
Fair? Before I let you go, do you have any ballpark for us as to when you would hope that that one particular loose end might be tied up so that you could proceed on with the project?
Well, with a little bit of luck, someone is watching this, or someone is talking to the owner who is watching this and saying, the city just wants to work with you. We need this project done. The problem really becomes is if we don't build this bridge relatively soon, by no means anything trying to be negative to the neighborhood, but we will have to close that bridge for safety reasons. So I would just ask that the owner of that property, and I certainly wouldn't want to call them out here, they know who they are, would just come to the table and say, what is it that we need to do? And hopefully we can knock this thing out in 30 days. We can get the project out to bid. It's about an 18-month project to build, so the sooner the better.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your work and that of your department.
Thank you.
Thank you. While we're giving shout outs, cannot forget Mr. Donald Williams, that is also a liaison for the board. I'm excited that he was able to retire and still kind of part-time. But in the meantime, Mr. Andrew has been super helpful also to fill in that. With that though is, so I see in the budget for FTE's capital improvement project liaisons, I'm assuming is Andrew and Donald. And is the plan to fill it and get a full-time employee as Mr. Donald is doing part-time, eventually to get a full-time FTE in that role?
Yes, absolutely. We have interviewed already. We're in that process now, making offers, decisions, and then the idea is to rehire the other ward liaisons back. And at some point, as I mentioned, Alderman Browning, about transitional employees leaving, like Donald Williams, who have many, many years of experience, and we cannot do without him, or a blank position, to get someone back in. Obviously, they wouldn't understand the position very well, and they would need to be trained by Donald and Andrew. And so that is all in process right now.
Okay. I was asked by a constituent on this one. Do we have an update? I think once upon a time there was supposed to be some development or redoing of Tucker Street, I think maybe back in 2018, between some funds from East West King, I can't pronounce it right now. Could you maybe give an update on the Tucker development that started back in 2018?
So I believe you're referring to Tucker Cycle Track Project.
Yes.
And it is an East-West Gateway grant project. And the design is wrapping up right now. Once we get the design completed, we are ready to bid that project, go to bid, and get building. And then, of course, the street department has some funding from Ameren to do the paving, and it will be a wonderful project. But in short order, we are pushing it now.
Okay. And just for my education, and maybe the newest alderman to the left of me, when we go out, when we reach out to our BPS liaison on projects, and then we as alder use the ward capital to pay for them, can you talk about maybe what is the delay of time for those projects getting done? Is it that after it is paid for ward capital, then you have to maybe wait on the comptroller, which sounds like from the comptroller office we're getting to a spot where they're not all wet signed and the new comptroller is moving to digital? Then maybe talk about the contract process of maybe why that is a delay, so you can just have a little bit more education of like how that streamline works from ward capital funds being signed to the comptroller office and then contracts actually going out.
And that is always the question about how that process works. So let me just take you on a little tour of that. And so what I would respectfully ask of all the alders is, you're having budget hearings, or just most recently had them. So the first thing that you want to do to expedite the process is make sure that your funding is in the right pot. Because if it's not in the right account, you have to go to the Board of E&A for a transfer. And a transfer generally takes 30 days, because by the time it goes down there and they approve it and comes back, that delays the process for a month already. Depending on what the project is, if it's a relatively simple project, we will write a quick feasibility report, get your approval, and then it will be assigned to our construction division. Construction division sends down to the comptroller's office a request for approval. In the past, and I'm going to say in the past because we have a new comptroller, and so I don't know what the process is going to be now, but it has taken some time. So it could be as quick as 30 days. It has taken up to 6 months to get a PO issued from down there. Once there's a PO that's issued and it comes back to the construction division, then it goes on to generally our citywide contract. What I want to remind everybody is this: if we didn't have a citywide contract, we would have to do a board letting or go out to bid for every one. That would add anywhere from 6 to 8 months to every project just by going to individual bids. So we've expedited the process by hiring a citywide contractor now. Goes on the list, and then we go through the list and we build the projects as they come in. So there's nobody first, last, or whatever. The only time they would ever move around generally is if I request it because it's a safety issue. There's some kind of a major safety problem for pedestrians, motorists, whatever. All right. There is one other facet that I think it's important that I mention here, is some things beyond a simple removal and replacement require engineering design work. Engineering design work is required by RSMO 327 state law. Licensed professional engineer, architect, land surveyor needs to sign sealed documents. And so in those cases, we have on-calls as well, just like we do for the citywide. If we were going to go out and solicit those individually, that would again be another 4 to 6 months added on to the process. So we know the quickest way to get you there. What we really need is we need to get the work orders turned around from the comptroller's office as quickly as possible. I do appreciate they're busy. I do appreciate all their good work. I'm simply asking for help.
Yeah, I appreciate that kind of breakdown. Like I say, just more of a little education for myself and to remember the process and us at the board. And no more questions, but I also hopefully with this new comptroller that some of these processes move a little quicker. I know it's been projects where I had to personally go to the office, months after just to make sure that they either move the money or sign it. So it's not only hold your department up, but it's not beneficial when it's, things like sidewalks and other things that residents are asking for. And I think a lot of times, we point the finger at BPS, but there's a lot of moving parts in that. And historically, some of those have been slowed down due to the previous administration, and hopefully some of the digitizing of the new office will speed those projects up so that city infrastructure can be improved when folks are asking for it through Ward Capital. So no more questions I have to the president's office. I want to just go to your next department.
Thank you.
Unless, did you have any? Okay. Thank you, President.
Next, I would like to move on to the Division of Facilities Management, 903, and I will introduce you to Commissioner of Facilities Management, Rick Ernst. And so just a quick highlight on what Facilities Management does. It is our in-house maintenance staff for over 174 facilities in the city. If you picture carpenters, plumbers, electricians, custodians, HVAC mechanics, laborers, just about anything that you can imagine on a facilities management staff, we have it. So this one, as well as the last one I'm going to talk about, have two parts to them. And I want to just take a minute and talk about that because I think that is extremely important. Back in 2013, when the city of St. Louis took local control of the police department, I took non-uniformed individuals in building maintenance, which is under facilities management, and fleet services, which we'll talk about under equipment services next. And so when we did our budget this year, Director Payne and his staff worked with us. We looked at historical data of what was allocated to the police department out of this division as well as ESD. And the reason for that is that with the passage of the state law and this opportunity for the police to go back to state control, there's going to be a discussion, and I don't know when or what that discussion is going to entail, but we know at some point there's going to be a discussion about how much of each of these budgets is allocated to the police department. So when I talk about this, your budget book generally addresses the Division of Facilities Management as one number, and then it shows another number for the police department. I can certainly talk about any of those breakdowns, but the breakdowns for the police department are generally from historical data and historical percentages from what we saw. And by the way, when they came over in 2013, we tracked them individually all the way up until about 2018 or 2019, until we finally collapsed them into one budget. So this is not new news for us. We've been down this road before, but I just want to make that point to you. So this division of facilities management, in all accounts, has 71 individuals. This current year, we're asking for 71 positions this next year, so there's no changes in any of the positions. I would just highlight a few things for you that stand out in my mind as some amount of changes. Under 5220 facilities and grounds, we asked for $900,000. We received $425,000. This is for various vendor supplies. This is MEP parts and custodial supplies and materials and things along those lines. And what I really want to say about this item is this: we project what we believe will break. So keep in mind, it's just like your home air conditioning and plumbing and anything else. You know it's older, it's beyond its useful life in most cases, but you can't really understand the cost of what the breakage is going to be until it breaks. So we project what we are going to use based on historical data. So we were cut down about $475,000. We understand that, and so we will make do the best we can with what we have in that line. Then I will skip down the other big items that I see that I just want to address are under the contractual items. So under public health and safety, which is 5615, we requested $250,000 and we received about $70,000. So we were short $190,000. What this is for UST, underground storage tank, lead and asbestos abatement service contracts that we would possibly have during the year. When we're doing work, we come across these different items. We're doing work, we come across an underground storage tank. These are items that, an item that helps us pay for abatement of those items. Again, we will work with what we have. I'm not asking for any more. I'm just making the mention that that's what these items are for, and this is how we projected them. Then if you drop down to 5657, which is utilities electric, we had asked for about $5.6 million. We received about $4.7 million, and so we're down about $919,000. And the reason that we asked for an additional amount there is it was projected that Ameren was going to have a 15.77% rate increase this year. So we took the historical data, we calculated it, and that's the number we came up with. Again, we don't know how many warm days or cold days we're going to have. We can only project on what our historical data is. And then finally, the gas utility, we had asked for $1.27 million, and we received 1.1. We were down basically $170,000 on gas. Again, Spire was projected with a 5% rate increase across the board, so that's why we did what we did there. Again, I'm not asking for anything additional. I'm just making you aware of what our thought process is, and we know that budget only has a certain amount of money to give out, and we will do our best to work with what they give us. So I'll stop there and see if we can answer any questions.
Alderwoman Velazquez?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Alderman Devotie?
Mr. Bradley, I just want to make sure that I understand. I know that there are numbers that are pulled out for the police unit. When we're looking at the fiscal year 26 request versus the proposal, and I think you pointed out specifically to salaries. When I do the math, it seems like the difference there is to pull out with respect to the police division. Would that be, when we see those large differences, is that the case no matter the category?
So, and let me highlight something real quick because I think it's important that you know this, that the police out of the recommendation, so the total recommendation was 20,893,000. The 903 division for city facilities was 15 million allocated.
Yes.
The police was 5.5 million allocated. So yes, it comes across the board, and there are some that are in the police portion of it, but generally it was short of what we had asked for out of the total amount.
And the two specifically that you pointed out, or three you specifically pointed out, had to do with utilities. Based upon past data and anticipating either an Ameren or a Spire. I'm not enunciating this very well, and I apologize, but that's where you're pointing out to us, hey, we didn't get in the budget what we asked for. Forget about the police division for a minute, but this is why we asked for an increase.
That's correct.
Okay.
We basically look at historical data, what we've used over the past couple of years. We look at projected rate increases and try to give the best number that we can. Again, understanding that budget has only so much money to allocate, and they do a very good job giving us close to what we need with what they have. So yes, it's a projection.
Thank you for putting up with my inartful questioning. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Ernst, for being here. Thank you for your other half. That is just super helpful. She helps me out personally as I have her on my list of secretaries. So thank you both for your commitment to the city of St. Louis. So I see you kind of explained your process of the amount that you asked for, and of course, Paul Payne is always going to make sure that things are tight for the city of St. Louis. Are there any on a wish list? Of course, you probably want it all, but are there any things that you did not receive that would be critical for this department that maybe the budget committee could advocate for?
So what I want to say is, like I would say for all my divisions, we will make do with what we're given.
Okay. Any certain positions? Just curious, that could be helpful for the division. I know you will, as my mom would say, rob Peter to pay Paul to make it happen, but if there were something that we could advocate for, is there something that's important for maybe this division that we could make an add to it that would be beneficial?
So I'll let my commissioner speak on that one.
Rick Ernst, Commissioner, Facilities Management Division. Alderman, no, there really isn't. We've got a good, solid group, and pardon my allergies. We have a good, solid group of people where we try to make management level relatively flat, and our focus is on actual skilled trade and contractual services. So that's where our core competencies are.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Ernst.
Thank you, sir.
You can proceed with your next department president.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, and certainly last but not least, I would like to speak to the Division of Equipment Services, 910, and just to give a real brief introduction. So Division of Equipment Services services over 3,700 vehicles in the city of St. Louis, fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, snow plows, lawnmowers, leaf blowers, anything that basically has a motor, they repair. They have 4 garages located throughout the city. And the commissioner I'd like to introduce him is Chris Amos, Commissioner of Equipment Services, another longtime city employee who's been doing this for quite a while. So this one, again, is just like the last one where in 2013, we took on police employees. And so when we went through the budget this year, we also broke out what needed to be allocated for the city versus the police, depending on what that conversation is. So let me start off and say this division has 118 employees. This coming fiscal year, we have 117. We lost a fleet body repair specialist in the police section. We had asked for $24,700,368, and we received $20,788,908. That's broken down by the city equipment services, $15,913,406, and the police projection would be $4,875,502. So when you look through this budget, some of the things that I would like to note here is up in the personnel services, the total of that one was about $1.1 million, less than what we requested. There were some back and forth with some contracted services that we had versus civil service positions. So that's $1 million of the $3.9 million that we were given. When you drop down to 5625 fleet services, we asked for about $2.3.5 million, and we were under by about $896,000. And in that case, those are various vendors for vehicle repairs that are not done by the city. So things that we farm out, and Chris could certainly get into all the details. And just like your HVAC equipment at home, your vehicle's the same way. You don't know, you know it's an older vehicle, but you don't exactly know what the repairs are going to be until they happen, and then you get into them. So we do the same thing in ESD as we do in facilities. We make a reasonable projection of what we're going to need versus cost increases from historical data over the past couple of years. Then we drop down to 56079 support services. We had asked for 7.675 million. We were they given $675,659 less than what we asked for. That is for the IBS and Napa parts contract. Just to talk about what that is in the 4 garages, we had vehicles that were not returning to service because we were ordering parts, and parts took a long time to come up with. So we also couldn't get people to work in our parts rooms in our 4 garages. No one would apply for civil service for that. So Mr. Amos, over a series of years, and myself worked with the personnel department. We came up with a contract, which is IBS. It's a Napa parts contract. He can tell you more of the specifics than me, but basically they staff the parts rooms in our 4 garages. They have the inventory of the parts we need. They have to provide us the parts in, basically 24 hours of what we need. So we get the parts much quicker, and we get the trucks back on the road faster. And this is extremely important in a time when we're probably $30 million down in need of vehicles in the city because they're beyond their useful life. So again, we will work with whatever we have. These are projected numbers, but that one was another big piece of that $3.9 million down. And then finally, under fleet services, 56080 fleet contract services, we asked for about $5 million on this one. We were given about 1.2 million less. This is our launch contract. So what I want to tell you is we have about 43 vacancies in civil service fleet mechanics at this date. Again, because we could not hire mechanics to get paid in the salary range that we pay. We worked with the personnel department and we came up with this item called a launch contract, which, by the way, the airport uses as well. It is a recruiting and staffing contract for our mechanics at our 4 garages. And it works well because they go out and do recruiting in the industry magazines and job fairs and so forth, above and beyond what our personnel folks are able to do. And so we get qualified mechanics that fill those empty civil service spots. And the beauty of it is we keep a few of those open so that if a person on the launch contract is working for us and they like working for us, we offer them a job to come over to civil service. So, and we've hired quite a few people in that manner as well. But all in general, like I said, from what we asked for to what we received, we were about $3.9 million given less. So I'll stop there, and Chris and I can answer questions for you.
Alderman Velazquez?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Is anybody else online outside of Alderman Velazquez? No. Alderman Devotie?
Yes, just a couple brief questions. Mr. Bradley, you just talked about the launch contract. I find that fascinating. Can you explain to us, and it sounds like you are a data-driven department, but when we talk about bringing someone on a contractual basis, say a mechanic, what does that person cost us over the course of a year versus a civil service employee, a mechanic otherwise doing the job?
So I'll give you the big answer, and then I'll let Chris answer because I know he would like to probably give you more details. We just ran analysis on this, to be honest with you, and it's a very, very similar cost. There's really no cost one way or the other because they get paid, launch gets paid more by the hour, but they receive no benefits. When you do a fully loaded rate with the civil service, it's very similar in cost.
Because of the benefits, okay. Which I understand. There is a common theme over the last 2 weeks with respect to pay. Competitive pay within the civil service compared to outside employees. How, and maybe Mr. Amos, you could answer this for us, but Mr. Bradley made reference to the idea that if someone comes into your department, they do well, you offer them civil service employment. How often is that taken up if there is that pay differential?
Chris Amos, I'm the Commissioner of Equipment Services.
Could you just state your name again in the mic?
Chris Amos, I'm the Commissioner of Equipment Services. Thank you for the question. The bottom line on it is the contract's been in place for 8 years. We're in the second contract, been amended 4 times in order to keep up the costs with the civil service pay. And the number of people who have transferred from launch, they recruited and worked at least 6 months with launch, that came over to civil service is 8 so far. And we have 2 waiting to do so in July when the new budget starts. So it does serve as a recruiting tool. And as Rich pointed out, the compensation is comparable, but there is a profit margin for the contractor and a cost of operating business doing the recruiting and all. They're basically a headhunting for technicians. Sure. So that does add to our costs. So on a per hour basis, it costs the city more to use a contractor than it would if we were able to fill up positions of civil service. But with 40 out of 82 technician positions filled with contractors, obviously we wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for the contractor. It has grown over the years. The first 9, which are over and above the civil service positions, were created because we took the fire department back in-house. We had them contracted out with Metro for a few years, but they could no longer support us. So we did the contract to get a quick plus up of those 9 employees. And then it just slowly grew year after year as we had retirements, but couldn't find replacements.
Excellent. I truly appreciate that explanation. That fills in a lot of gaps for me, so thank you very much. While we have you at the dais, Mr. Bradley made mention of, I wrote down IBS, or the NAPA contract, the idea of the contract services to work the parts room, or to work that aspect of your, there is what appears to be a significant reduction. In fact, Mr. Bradley, I think you even made reference to that. Mr. Amos, from your standpoint as commissioner of this department, what does that mean to you? That it appears to be about a $2 million reduction in request versus proposal. I mean,
Well, as Rich has said, we'll do the best we can with what we were given. But the bottom line on it is that parts are going up. We already know they're going up 5 to 7%, mostly because of steel costs and rubber sealants and things like. So materials went up, supply went up, parts went up, and the contract passes on NAPA IBS's cost to us, plus their profit margin, and then plus what they cost them to man our shops, which that contract and that number represents 12 people, of which when the IBS contract took place 2 years ago, we only had 2 of the 12 filled. And so I had foremen and senior technicians minding parts rooms well below their pay grade until we put the contract in. So it's not cheap, but it certainly is comparable to what's going on the outside, and it does get the vehicles fixed.
So let me ask a practical question. If we're talking about 12 folks, 12 individuals through the contract, and we know the cost of parts is also going up, and the proposal is $2 million less than the request, what you foresee for the upcoming year. Practically, are we talking about a loss of personnel, the inability to access parts we need to keep our vehicles on the street, or a combination of both of those? I mean, practically, I guess the question is, what's the consequence?
Well, we can't change the number of staff because we already work the minimum, so there's at least one person at each of the 4 garages for each of the shifts that they're open. So that's whatever they pay for that, we credit them for that for a markup on the parts. But then we zero that out every 6 months, so they're not making any money on that. The parts themselves, when we did the budget in February, there was not just the cost of living increase to consider, there was also the threat of tariffs, both on Canadian and Chinese steel going up. And so, that's a volatile situation. So if the tariffs stay down, the $2 million won't be as big of a hit to handle. If the tariffs stay up on those things, then the price of steel will go through the roof like it did back in 2018. And so it's hard to know what's going to happen, but the result will be that I will not approve the repair of vehicles that have major parts costs, and we'll end up surplusing more of the older vehicles. As Rich pointed out, we have, of the 3,700 vehicles we have, 32 million of them are more than 5 years overdue for replacement. And I don't fault the capital committee's process. They have a very tough choice to make. And so they do the best they can with keeping the critical stuff filled. But the bottom line is we try to keep it all on the road as well as the spares in order to make sure the operating departments can perform the services.
You've used a term of art with us, surplusing a motor vehicle, surplusing a vehicle. What does that mean?
Well, we handle procurement through supply division with the bidding process. And so supply division also has auction on contract and a junking contract for things that are not operational anymore. And so we will take a vehicle like a patrol Tahoe that's used in the police department. It'll have 5 or 6 years of hard run life. It'll have 120,000 miles on it when it gets replaced in the high use area. But that vehicle may very well have 4 or 5 more years left if it's put in something like a visiting home nurse or a tree inspector or something. So we downgrade the assignments to them to try to get every last mile out of them.
Okay, very interesting. And then finally, my last question, I promise. I appreciate your patience. Mr. Bradley, you made mention, and I think this is kind of tied in, this notion of we are $30 million down in the reasonable life of our fleet vehicles. For the new guy, could you just explain that statement to me? What exactly are you referring to?
So when I refer to that, that means they're on the capital needs list. They're beyond their useful life. ESD has determined that they are well beyond their normal replacement cycle. And of course, again, with your home vehicle, when you get to a certain age, you're putting more maintenance cost into it than you are if you just buy a new vehicle. So they go on the capital needs list, which again, we talked about $500 million, 140 some odd million dollars of critical capital needs. And then the capital committee makes a decision of how to spend $21 or $25 million against that. And that is, bridges, buildings, streets, roads, vehicles, everything included, and it becomes a nearly impossible task for the capital committee. So, you know, when we had ARPA funding, we allocated some ARPA funding for vehicles. That cut that list down, but it has to be a recurring number every year. You buy a fire department vehicle, one vehicle is $1.2, $1.5 million. An ambulance is $400,000. So it takes a lot of money to keep these vehicles on the street. And if we're not keeping vehicles on the street for critical operations, people like parks and streets, water, they cannot get their jobs done. So it's incumbent that we figure out a way to either replace the vehicles or be able to properly repair them and keep them running.
Thank you both for the education.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chris. I know you, I've seen you in our budget committee last year when we kind of talked about the electric Ford Mustangs. But I know that you go, which I raised a little funk about, but I think we got an understanding of maybe why green cars are beneficial later down the line. And I know you go hard and fight hard for your department and for fleets and cars within the city of St. Louis. So I just want to thank you and give you a few words if you wanted to say anything, but just thank you for all that you do.
Well, just want to say a word about the electric vehicles. Fortunately, Ford and GM have produced vehicles of the small electric variety that are U.S. made. And so we probably won't be buying any more Mustangs because they won't be low bid anymore. But we continue to buy electric vehicles up to the capacity of the electric vehicle recharging industry that the alderman appropriated funds for over the last few years. And so we're kind of in a wait and see game right now to see how the current federal administration does with rebates and things like that to know where we do. But we only buy electric vehicles when it makes economic sense to do so. In fact, with the federal rebates that we get on the vehicles and the infrastructure, it actually costs less for an electric vehicle for the city than if we bought the conventional fuel vehicle. So just wanted to put your mind at ease that we're not there throwing money away. We don't have it to throw away.
Well, like I say, after raising that concern, you did a really good job coming to the committee explaining that. I was like, cities buying Mustangs, and that's what we use the money for. But I also had the opportunity to see the inside of it and learn how it's more of a cost saving later down the line for the city of St. Louis with those electric vehicles. So again, thank you for your commitment to the city and all that you do.
Thank you, sir.
If any other questions? I think that was your last department, President.
That is it. We are complete.
All righty. Well, that's all that I have. With that, we will take a recess until 11 a.m. where we have the Board of Election come in. So I guess I'll take a motion to recess.
Second.
All in favor, aye? Opposed?
Aye.
All right, we are resuming our budget committee from our recess with the Board of Elections. Today we have both commissioners, Republican and Democratic commissioner, here to present the Board of Elections budget. You guys may proceed on up to the dais and then just state your first and last name for the record and proceed with your presentation.
Sure. Alderman, this is also Josh Lewis. He's our budget director. He's just going to be with us.
Okay, talk a little bit more to the mic. I don't know. Is it on? Is it green?
Hello?
There we go. If you could just you can pull off if you want to.
I'm Gary. I'm Gary Stoff, Garystoff, and I'm the Republican Director of Elections.
I'm Ben Borgmeyer. I'm the Democratic Director of Elections.
And can you state the budget director's name again for,
Josh Lewis, Lewis.
all right, please proceed.
I just want to say you are both my two favorite alder people. So I'm really happy to be here today and to be in front of you presenting for the Board of Elections.
Awesome. I think the alderwoman from the 6th Ward is online, so hopefully she.
Oh, she's my second favorite. So, thank you once again for having us. The upcoming fiscal year is technically a down year for the Board of Elections, so there's no scheduled elections. We do have the 8th Ward special election that will be taking place in July. But other than that, the budget, to me, I just want to say thank you for the budget. I mean, there's nothing I would request superfluous to what is happening here in this budget. The Board of Elections, at some point during this next fiscal year, is going to try to identify certain needs as far as infrastructure, things like that. There was stories in the news over this past year about our warehouse and elevators in the space we're in now. But we handled that, but going forward, those are probably going to be some we need to address. But I would just say thank you for what has been allocated. There's sufficient funds as far as what I can identify with the line items, as far as salaries, our staff, our operating costs. So thank you.
All right.
I would just echo our appreciation with the assistance of your committee and the Board of Aldermen and the city in general. Last year, we had 4 citywide elections that I think by all accounts were very successfully conducted. These most recent municipal elections, we reported our final unofficial results by 8:45, and we certified in advance of the 2-week statutory requirement. So that's in large measure attributable to having new voting equipment, having things like no excuse absentee voting, voters being able to vote anywhere, being able to go online and check how many people online. So with your assistance and that of the Board of Aldermen in the city, we've been able to, I think, do great things for the voters. So we appreciate that. And in this upcoming year, we'll still have things like a statutorily required canvass of all the voters in the city of St. Louis. We'll have petitions to work that we'll get from the Secretary of State's office. And as Ben properly alluded, we have issues we're transitioning as rapidly and as efficiently as we can to 1520 Market Street, all our equipment. So thank you for what you've done for us. We very much appreciate.
All right. With that, I'll just go in order of questions from committee members. Alderman Devotie. Alderwoman Velasquez. I'm sorry. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Yeah, confused there for a second. Although I don't have any questions, other than I don't know how I'm your second favorite.
You weren't sitting right here when I said it.
That was a joke. I'm joking. And hi, Gary, to Commissioner Stoff and Commissioner Borgmeyer. I don't really have any questions. I guess just I heard some. How's the move going? I guess I know it's not a budget related question, but assuming you don't have any budgetary needs related to the move that haven't been addressed, obviously we want to make sure that you have all the equipment you need for upcoming elections and whatnot.
Yeah, all the equipment definitely is where it needs to be right now, as far as some of the just finishing off the space, things like that. Those are issues that we're going to have to try to identify and figure out sources of funds for that. It's probably something of the nature of like capital improvement, not necessarily stuff out of our operating budget. But those will be just ongoing projects that we'll handle internally over the next.
And then actually do one more question for you. I know we're at a down year because of the election cycle. Are you planning on, one of the things that obviously no stranger to you that we're facing in the city is just, trying to increase our voter turnout. Is there a plan, and maybe not this coming budget cycle, but the next coming budget cycle, to try and address that. I know that there were some public education funds last year, but if you could just speak to that.
Sure. Not to hog the mic, but as far as we've gone through a reorganization internally as far as staffing and how we've addressed job positions, there is a dedicated job on our staff now for outreach. And so I think as far as our social media accounts, things like that, I think you've already seen an improvement. But it's also part of something as far as a plan, as far as outreach, trying to target, not necessarily to increase turnout, but to educate voters about what their options are and different avenues for them to vote. And that is, I guess always part of like something that we're doing, but having a dedicated person on our staff to look for opportunities for the Board of Elections and insert itself, into communities and try to make connections. I think that's where we're at right now. We're currently going through ADA efforts and just general polling place accessibility. We're evaluating polling places, evaluating our current setup of polling places, trying to identify better polling places and trying to make people more knowledgeable about what their options are. I think you've seen it in different kind of apps we've released as far as whether it's wait time, things related to the Vote Anywhere, but just trying to increase information to voters about what we do and what their options are. So I don't know necessarily if it's funding or if it's about us having more of a presence. So, I think that's where we're at right now.
Let me just add to that, we've increased our social media presence through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We have 1,352 followers on Facebook. We're always looking to expand that, as well as placing instructional videos, like on our YouTube channel. So that'll be part of the ongoing process, and we're very much committed to trying not just let voters know what's coming up, but encourage them to take advantage of the opportunity to get out there and cast their vote. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Stuff. Thank you, Commissioner Borgmeyer. Yeah, the Board of Elections is one of the departments I like to brag on when I'm in different places, just because we offer so much, and not every city or place really has as much as we have. And I know that you all probably punch above your weight comparatively. So thank you for all the hard work that you put in for our democracy. That's all I got. Thank you.
She's really working to become number one, isn't she?
She might be number one.
Uh-oh, I got pushed down to number two. I'll take it. The Alderwoman from the sixes, she's a scrappy one, so I do not want to fight with her. Alderman Devoti.
I think that suggests I'm number 3, and I don't know that I'm
Well,
crazy.
you're new.
I'm crazy about that, yeah. Well, I think, huge congratulations to both of you and your crew. It seems to me that in your position, you're kind of like a good home plate umpire. At the end of the game, if we don't know who was calling balls and strikes, if we don't know who the guy in black was, that means pretty dang good job. So I think very well done on the 4 elections that were managed this past year. I am curious, one of you, and I don't remember who, made mention of the no excuse absentee voting. As you look back and as you're planning ahead for the next year, and I know that you're constantly doing that, what is your assessment as far as, I guess, use of that tool by our voters here in the city?
Sure. You mind, Gary? So kind of 2 different experiences. The federal election, just high use. So over half the city voters who voted in that election utilized no excuse early absentee. We then tried, thinking that was kind of the wave of the future. We did basically the same footprint for March and then April, and experiencing just a aggressive downturn as far as the number of people that utilized it. Okay, I personally think that no excuse absentee is the wave of the future as far as voters, that becoming kind of a primary way for people to vote. The thing is that, it's kind of hard to justify the cost for that 2 weeks during the municipal election when it's not utilized. It's something that we've been talking about internally, whether it's some truncated periods, say we do a week, better ways to address that. So I don't know necessarily why voters didn't come out like they did for November. But, I still think it's a way, if we could get the word out, it lead to, obviously more access for voters and actually more efficiencies for the city as far as the ultimate cost of the elections.
You anticipated my next question which was, what do you attribute that severe downturn to? November versus the spring municipal elections. Is there anything in particular?
Breathless urgency to vote. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's, I think it's natural as far as turnout. The August, November cycle experiences, since the beginning of time, more turnout. There was talk with the Charter Commission this past couple of years about the possibility of, moving elections, things like that. Because in my opinion, you do see more turnout in August and November. There are issues with trying to do that move, such as, ballot fatigue, things like that. But I just think it's something ingrained in voters and in their just natural movements to come out and vote in November. And I think that most likely is attributable to it.
Well, again, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question that I have on page 194 in your line item detail. Can you talk about what the communication services, what is that?
It's essentially the cost of cellular phones at polling places to communicate to the election board. It has increased dramatically. Yeah, because essentially what elections are billed to the entities that participate in elections. So those costs, that 44,227 right there, that's a cost during election time. It is separated amongst the entities that are participating in the election. There are no elections coming up this year, but we still have to maintain the contract with Verizon to provide the service. So that's why that figure's there.
Okay. And I'm sure when this budget was made, it wasn't put in. I guess, what do you anticipate? Where would it go also? You anticipate for the July 1st special 8th ward election? Or where would that come out of?
So as far as the staffing, typically the largest costs for elections are the staffing costs, polling places, and the ballot printing costs. We moved to the vote on demand system a couple of years ago, so those ballot printing costs have dramatically decreased. Also, our funding through ARPA pays for the cost of the licensing of the election equipment. So that's something that would not come out of our operating budget. We're still formulating the plan as far as staffing the polling places. It might be a situation where we could handle the staffing internally, therefore not adding a figure to the budget.
And how do you go about, I know polling places have changed, and I think just maybe for the education of people watching, I know there was a lot of changes, I think, because you guys have, was it federal requirements that you have to now abide by, like ADA? Could you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The two biggest things that have been happening with the election board over the last 3 years are the ADA settlement agreement we had with the Department of Justice, and then also our move to the Vote Anywhere system. I think those two things are, trying to grapple with those two projects has caused this evaluation of polling places and what is possible. Specifically, Alderman Eldridge, in your ward, a place like, is it Jefferson School?
Mm-hmm.
So Jefferson School is one of those places that the Department of Justice had issues with the ramp, that even though there's an ADA dedicated ramp to the facility, that ramp itself was not ADA compliant. So because of the settlement agreement we had with the Department of Justice, it's a process of identifying additional replacement polling places or remedial needs to the polling place. And so it has caused an evaluation of all our polling places as far as what is usable. I will say, even with the changes in polling places, I think less than 5,000 of the 216,000 registered city voters were more than a mile away from a polling place. So as far as what the polling place options are for city voting, voting is accessible to the city. I think maybe the piece we need to work on harder on our end is how the information about what the polling places are communicated.
If I can just add one comment on the ADA compliance. The original agreement was not set to expire until July of this year till we got past the municipal elections. And because of the good work, frankly, we were doing, which included hiring an ADA manager, the DOJ, on their own volition, voluntarily terminated that agreement in December of last year, indicating you did well, keep doing well, which is what we're doing. I would also just add a comment, Alderman, about the spring elections. Historically, that's been the case, and I think Ben probably hit the nail on the head when you think in terms of people get all excited about August, November, then you have Thanksgiving and Christmas and a New Year. For some reason, they don't get excited. Now, at every chance we had after the first of the year, we were telling people how important all elections are, but particularly local elections. No matter who you like, no matter who you vote for, these individuals are going to have a direct impact on the lives of every citizen in the city of St. Louis. So go out and cast your vote. Sometimes I think that falls on deaf ears.
And then my last question, are the positions for Assistant Deputy Director of Elections and System Development Manager filled?
So that's another project we're working on. Those job titles do not match our current job structure. So we're working with, I guess, Department of Personnel. That's something Josh is engaged with, trying to rectify that as far as the FTE on the budget requests matching what our actual board bills.
Okay, that makes sense. Seeing no other questions from committee, unfortunately, Ben, you fell into my trap because I've been knowing Mr. Stoff for a while, and he will always be my favorite commissioner down at the Board of Elections. So I'm glad I'm still on your top list.
My favorite too. So.
All right, with that, seeing no other questions from the committee, I will entertain a motion to go into recess until roughly 12 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Seconded. Thank you, Board of Elections. It was moved by the Alderman of the 5th, seconded by the Chairman of the 14th, that we're going to recess to 12. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the Budget and Public Employees Committee will resume from our recess. And for the last discussion item of the day, we have the Department of Health. Try not to be biased here. It's one of my favorite departments, so I'm just glad to have one of our amazing directors in the city of St. Louis, Dr. Madi, here with her fabulous team that do great work when it comes to health in the city of St. Louis. So we will have Director come on up and present your presentation. Just state your name, your role, and if you want to introduce us to some of your staff members that are here, and you can proceed with your presentation. Just make sure there's a little button that mic is on.
Yes.
And,
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, yes.
Good afternoon, Alderman and Budget Chair Aldred. Good afternoon, esteemed members of the Budget Committee. My name is Dr. Mati Hlachwire Davis. I'm the Director of Health for the City of St. Louis. I would request an opportunity to introduce the members of my team that are here with me today. First, our Commissioner of Health, Victoria Anwari, is here with us. The Fiscal Bureau Manager for the Department of Health, Emmanuel Kani, and one of our Public Information Officers, Willie Springer. I'd like to credit him and his team for the beautiful slides and all of the preparation before you. Took a lot of work, and they do amazing work. So without further ado, and with your permission, I am ready to start.
Absolutely, and I just want to mention we are being graced with also on the committee today, President Green. So thanks for being here, President. Madam President.
Thank you. I did not want to miss Dr. Mott presentation.
Madam President, I saw you come and I clutched my proverbial pearls. This is a really special opportunity. So let's get started. So it is my distinct honor and pleasure to present to you the Department of Health's FY26 budget. This will sadly be the last time you see me before you, but I believe this may be one of the most important times you will hear from a Director of Health for this city because of the times that we're in, and this is reflected in this presentation. Next slide, please. So we will begin with an overview. This slide represents the Department of Health fiscal year budgets from fiscal year 2024 to 2026. For those of you who have the budget handbook with you, this will correlate to page 197, located in the annual operating plan. I'll allow folks to get there if helpful. So what you see here on the slide represented is the actual spending in 2024 amounted to $27,147,563. The budgeted amount for 2025 came to $35,660,226, and the proposed amount for 2026 is $35,500,425. I do want to make note that there are some adjustments that we will get into later to FY26, as some of our grants have been terminated or will not be renewed, and some information in the original budget book was incorrect. So we will address those as we go and in summary slides at the end. Next slide, please. So this slide represents the Department of Health general funding versus grant funds. You can also find this information in the annual operating plan on page 197. For fiscal year 2025, the department's general funding was only slightly over the department's grant funding. General funding came to nearly $19.5 million, while grant funds came to a total of $16 million. In fiscal year 2026, the department will receive less grant funds. General funding amounts to nearly $18.7 million, while grant funds amount to $17.2 million. However, you see a third bar on the chart that represents grant funding adjusted for amounts that we will no longer receive as follows. And if you're looking for this in the book, that will be page 370 and 381 of the line item budget. So the first point to consider here is just over $2.2 million was removed from the grant budget for 711-014. This funding was terminated by the federal government on March 24th of this year. Around $750,000 was removed from the grant budget for 715-008. That's on page 381. This grant ends on June 30th, 2025, as it is no longer being renewed, I beg your pardon. So I want to make this clear that at the beginning, you are going to see the very real, serious, and critical signs of the times, which will set the scene for my requests at the end and some of the feedback I will be giving. Next slide, please. This slide represents a pictorial representation of fiscal year 26 for the local use tax fund budget by division for the Department of Health. This information can be found on page 198 of the annual operating plan before you. So the healthcare trust within our department accounts for 28% of the total budget. The portion that is attributed to the director, my budget, the director's health and hospitals, accounts for 15%. Communicable disease control accounts for 12%. Environmental health services accounts for 14%. Animal care and control accounts for 13%. Oversight of medical evaluation of CJC, or as it is referred to here as inmate medical, accounts for 5%. Our family, community, and school health accounts for 8%, and the health commissioner's budget accounts for 5%. As you all know, I do like to educate people as we go along. I think this pie chart needs special attention. If we are serious about the health of families, of children, and youth, some of these percentages should be shocking to you and quite frankly unacceptable. The fact that we have accepted them for over a decade now and continue to, as we see some of the worst times of public health, is something that requires discussion, and I hope we will discuss in more detail at the end of my presentation. Next slide, please. So as the Department of Health usually does, we spend a lot of time, and I want to give credit to our Commissioner of Health, Victoria Nwuri, who spends a painstaking amount of time preparing the department and all the divisions for the budget season. We also try to be as clear as possible, and we put together a memo every year since my second year in the city after I received feedback about the quality of the department's budget to really make clear our priorities, what positions we're asking for in ranked order, and why. This year, so in the Department of Health, we usually start the budget process as early as August of the year before. That's how seriously we take this. And we start off with an executive leadership meeting with all of the managers and supervisors in the department. This year, I took a different approach because ever since I've been here, I've really pushed this department on a growth track. As you all know and have heard many times, I've almost doubled the size of this department in under 4 years, which is unprecedented. But that can take its toll on leaders, especially leaders that are leading from a place of resource from without. They don't have as much funding or as much resources that they have to lead. So this year, I asked all of them to have a reflective period and to consider if for each of the divisions that they lead, are they going for a growth year or for a maintenance year? And I did a lot of leadership and coaching around the importance of both of those phases. If you continue to push departments and divisions to only focus on growth, they can become overwhelmed, they can burn out, and it can actually be destructive. So I believe that it's important to also focus on maintenance phases. And so coming off several years of phenomenal growth, FY26 is an opportunity to prioritize maintenance of our bureaus, which is what you'll see a lot of in some of these presentations, and programs over further expansion, which is what you've seen me push since I took over. As we juggle likely federal funding cuts, and we've already received 4 major ones, increasing public health needs and a change in leadership, with my last day being next week, we will be ensuring that the critical services we provide to the community remain strong, which is why you will predominantly hear about this maintenance phase that I'm not only encouraging, but have been coaching managers to lean into at this phase in our growth cycle. So these priorities are reflected on this slide. Number 1, we want to explore absorbing positions. And I want to be clear, the first bullet point was obviously not reflected in our initial budget proposal to the city that was due in January. And since then, public health has been under assault at the federal, state, and local level. And so this first bullet point has been a necessary judgment and assessment, and unfortunately has to be the number 1 priority because of what has already come and what we know is to come. So that first bullet point reads, explore absorbing positions and potentially impacted programs that provide critical and/or core services to the community should federal funding be further cut. Second priority is to examine the best route forward for an animal shelter that meets the city's needs and ensures adherence to all industry standards. Third, continue the momentum built in FY25, including supporting the new Behavioral Health Bureau that I brought to the city during my tenure, advancing our FAB accreditation activities, and updating and implementing our quality improvement plan. Last but certainly not least is to continue forward momentum in providing oversight of jail medical care. While I have seen this be minimized, quite frankly, in many outlets, to go from 6 deaths and 5 deaths in years prior to 2 in just 1 year is something that took incredible leadership and a dedication in the intervention of the Department of Health. And so we want to continue that forward momentum because, quite frankly, the residents and inmates at CJC deserve it. Next slide, please. But I must start with the current national landscape before us and really impress upon you the importance of flexibility, prioritization of a plan to address the federal budget cuts that have been made clear at the national level. I want to be very transparent in saying that my leadership and I worked very hard to put together a cost-neutral approach earlier this year to really address and put together critical infrastructure to address this moment. Why is this important? When I first inherited this health department and did some assessments in partnership with Washington University, we are easily 4 to 5 times smaller than we need to be for the city this size. When I first inherited my budget, it was less than 1%. I'm grateful that it's sitting at just above 2%, thanks to the leadership and support of Mayor Jones and her administration. However, it is still woefully behind global standards set by the WHO, and quite frankly, the city of St. Louis is very much behind many African cities and jurisdictions, where the bottom level that is set by the WHO for cities or jurisdictions to support their local health department is at least 5% of the budget. With that in mind, you need to understand that the way that this health department had to make up for that discrepancy is to rely heavily on federal funding. This health department is the highest federally funded health department in the entire state of Missouri, and by a long shot. We are 55% federally funded. So when you see the landscape before you and you start to see federal cuts that come as suddenly as they do, with plans to continue to slash and eradicate funding for public health at the national level, you need to understand that this will not only hurt, but devastate a health department that was already operating from a resource-poor environment. This doesn't take away from the wealth of leadership and effort that leaders in the city have had to do to maintain a healthy budget. Of course, that work being led by Paul Payne, but it doesn't have to be an either or, it is an and. That can be true, and we need to do more for public health. So this slide is a pictorial representation of what's at stake. We are seeing incredible cuts already have come and are threatened to come in the areas that you see before you. Some of those, you can go to the pages that we have highlighted in blue in banners above in your booklet, but some examples are emergency preparedness, loss of the ability to effectively plan and prepare the Department of Health to respond to a citywide event. This is the division or bureau that were responsible for responding to COVID, to MPOX, when the floods came, and they came more than once. Every time there's a tornado. This is not just a core function of public health, it is what literally saves lives when public health comes. And with the loss of a total already, as evidenced on page 351 of $253,755 in funding, emergency preparedness would lose the ability to secure health and safety supplies, as well as funding used to attain and provide critical training to department staff who will have to act in an emergency response capacity in the event of a citywide event. Let's go to a second example, as you see on the screen, HRSA, which accounts for a huge chunk of our federal funding. Here we have already $6,390,685 in Ryan White funding lost, if it is eliminated, potentially. Of the anticipated $1.7 billion decrease of their funding, we do not yet know the full scale of its impact. But if the leaked budget at the national level is anything to go by, this would be devastating. Another example, $3,129,608 in HUD funding for HOPWA. If eliminated, HUD being combined 45% could cut $33 billion. The loss of HUD and HRSA funds will also reduce the amount of funding going out to community partners who rely solely on funding from this department. So while sometimes these decisions are made for a small but mighty health department, I think we need to start attaching human beings in this community whose sole livelihoods, whose sole ways to keep their families healthy, and the businesses, the small businesses that we say we care so deeply in St. Louis, they're within, are funded fully from some of these dollars. If cut completely, it will impact community partners who provide these critical services to those we serve. But there's more. HIV prevention and ending the HIV epidemic grants ended and were converted to the high-impact HIV prevention and surveillance services. These are presented in your booklet on page 366, 371 as well, for a total of $953,161 potentially. All EHE funding mentioned in proposed cuts would mean loss of critical services to prevent illness and to provide necessary support to those fighting the illness. And this is one thing that I think maybe have been lost in the discussion. While it's easy to see one word that represents an illness and then correlate that to an at-risk group, and maybe give yourself a false sense of security that that means that you can cut off funding to just that group and it won't touch your families. The reason I chose infectious diseases as my subspecialty as a physician is because of how compelling viruses and bacteria and fungi and organs and microorganisms are, in that they do not care. They don't care your race, your gender, your sex, your gender identity. They don't care if you live in the most affluent neighborhoods. And so while it will affect some of those at-risk groups first, let us be clear that if we continue this purposeful assault on public health, it will come to all of our homes, regardless of our paycheck. Last but certainly not least, our concern also for TB outreach, where there is a potential for $69,640 for refugee and immigrant community services that could be cut. These cuts have already come to us. I will never forget the first day I was sitting at my desk and a series of emails came one after the other in a 2-hour period. The language, the most severe I've ever experienced in my career, to tell me that this funding was cut effective that day, that by midnight that day, we were to continue no further programming. That day, it actually affected a small program that we had piloted in the Department of Health to provide food, nutrition, education, and food to seniors in partnership with the YMCA. There is nothing more foundational and fundamental as that, but that one was one of the first cuts that we had to contend with in the Department of Health for a total of 4. More are coming. This department has spent an enormous amount of effort and work and thoughtfulness to think about a strategy. And while we empathize with how difficult it is to go through a budget season, how important it is to stick to some of the decisions made, this moment requires and calls for flexibility, and that flexibility must be adhered to if critical departments like the Department of Health and the Department of Human Services are to survive. Next slide, please. The Department of Health, as I have stated, submitted a proactive and cost-neutral plan to offset anticipated federal funding cuts to core critical programs, and I provided it to this administration within their first week. A plan was submitted in February 1st to the previous administration, outlining a plan to continue providing critical services to communities at no additional cost to the cities. We identified positions we're willing to lose or trade in order to retain key federally funded staff, all at no additional cost to the city. We proposed adjusting our current and upcoming budget to accommodate the impact of these cuts and maintain continuity of core services. We also proactively and in partnership with both the prior and current administration prepared a draft executive order that would allow us to respond swiftly and maintain public health functions as cuts are confirmed, helping us avoid layoffs and prevent service gaps. We resubmitted this plan again in the week after the election. The department has a responsibility to the residents of the city of St. Louis to provide critical and core services. We and I took that mandate and have always taken that mandate and responsibility very seriously as we search for solutions. Thank you. Next slide, please. I will now walk you through the FY26 annual operating plan for the Department of Health and Hospitals. Next slide, please. So the fiscal year 26 budget review findings. We will start with Department 1110-700, which reflects the director's budget. For those of you who are following along in the booklet, these will be found on pages 342 and 354, but I will start with an overview. This budget, the director's budget, for those of you who are not as familiar with our budget, serves to support various sections. It's kind of a hodgepodge of other divisions, quite frankly, some that I created under my tenure, that don't have their own individual budget line items, such as our Communications Bureau, new under my tenure. Epidemiology started off with 2. We had as low as 2 EPIs. We now have a thriving group of 11, as well as other operational supports. The director's staff continue to make the department one that can meet the needs of the city. So for 1110-710, the Health Commissioner's budget, this supports our FAB accreditation, quality improvement efforts, contract management, and fiscal functions. While this may sound really boring, we were in high-risk designation or in the red for almost every single, if not every single audit when I took over in 2021. It was a high priority for me to first work with our remarkable Kenny, who has worked with a really small team to try to address those concerns, came to the prior administration asking for permission to use vacancies at that time to go into a contract with an accounting firm to really fix the books. What did that look like? Building standard operation procedures, building KPIs, really working with them, and then, quite frankly, hiring a commissioner who comes with over 20 years of experience in this, who came to lead and has done so, has helped to build the critical infrastructure, QI efforts, contract management division that never existed before. That all now falls into her budget as well to oversee. And for that, our goal this year is for staff to improve program monitoring and evaluation in line with accreditation standards from the Public Health Accreditation Board. If you look at pages 342 and 354 in the line item budget, you will see a reduction in salaries, regular employees, that's account 510-100, due to cutting of 2 positions and transfer of 1 position to 710-000, and also due to salary savings reduction, page 344. For the most part, we did not ask for too much. I talked about that maintenance phase in those budgets. So those 2 changes are really the only changes that you would see reflected in that budget, in these 2 budgets. Next slide, please. For 1110-711, communicable diseases, for those who are watching at home, communicable diseases really comprises what you think about for core public health response. This involves the teams that have to do disease investigation, disease surveillance. So for example, the recent announcement we made about a visitor at the aquarium who was found to have measles. This is the team that has to contact the aquarium, get the list of all the people that were there that day during the at-risk period, call all of those people, email all of those people, work with all of the surrounding counties, work with area hospitals, do disease surveillance, work with our data analysts to report this in a timely and accurate fashion to the public. So the Communicable Diseases Control Division, or CDC, will, not to be confused with the CDC in Atlanta, will increase the number of community events and increase the number of self-test kits given to community. Because the department is so small, one of the things I had to do was be innovative about how a very small team that really should be 5 to 6 times its size can reach the city. So we had to come up with innovative strategies, like instead of requiring a 1-to-1 ratio of providing testing kits for people for a number of tests, especially sexually transmitted infections that St. Louis City has unfortunately been one of the highest rates in the country for many, many years, was to invest in a plan to have self-testing kits, where we empower people to take these kits home. We empower people to test themselves. We address stigma by them not having to come to a government building where they may not have where they have valid mistrust in the government and healthcare leaders, and this has been an enormously successful program and continues to grow. So we are increasing the number of self-test kits given how this has taken off. Also, the division will be focusing in FY26 in increasing the number of TB testing opportunities in our unhoused shelters. I'm really thankful for the collaboration and partnership with the Department of Human Services. We also plan to increase the number of outreach events in perinatal hepatitis B programming as well. Those are the priorities that we asked for that will be reflected in the FY26 budget. For the next slide, please. We'll now move on to 1110-714. And that should be primarily represented on page 375 if you're following along in the budget book. So what are our priorities here? Animal care and control has been in a difficult position for many years. We have seen an increase in need to respond to many more animals for a shelter that quite frankly has outgrown it. I have been asking for support for a new building for that. Was really grateful to have some positive conversations with the current administration about the future of those requests, as well as to provide a well-functioning animal care and control program in partnership with our contractor and other community partners. So the goals are to provide full uniforms to animal care and control officers, including body cameras, to audit our standard operating procedures and to continue to build them out to ensure a solid base, to equip the ACC vehicles with laptop mounts to document reports, and to conduct research while in the field so that we can hold ourselves to a standard of improvement. If you look at page 375, how this was some of the things that we'd like to point out, the professional services budget for animal care and control was reduced by $500,000. The approved amount is unfortunately insufficient for CareSTL shelter services contract currently and shelter cleaning, so we are requesting that be looked at and provided it in our supplemental information. CareSTL shelter services contract amounts to over 1.3 million, so to be exact, $1,350,024. Shelter cleaning requires an additional $1,400 for a total of $1,351,424. So that amount will have to be addressed for the continuation of services. Next slide, please. We are now moving to 1110-715, Environmental Health Services. For those of you who are not familiar, this is kind of the core foundational department, our largest department in the Department of Health. That's a hodgepodge of a lot of foundational things. When you go to a restaurant and you pray that you're not going to see a mouse or other vermin scurrying across the floor, it is because food inspectors at the Department of Health have spent a lot of time in partnership with those businesses to make sure that they meet industry standards. This also includes air pollution. It includes community sanitation, folks who review and work with the building division closely about the quality of buildings and places where people live, because we know that that directly affects health. It also includes emergency preparedness and vector control, as well as animal care and control. And did I get everyone? I think I got everyone. Yep. So this is quite a hodgepodge. For the purposes of this budget, we are not going to be including animal care and control as we address them separately. So the goals for the FY26 year for environmental health services is to transition from legacy food inspection software to updated web-based, expansion of electronic payment system to include all food permit types, enabling professional development opportunities for inspectors and administrative staff, and quite frankly, to make for a better customer service experience for people in the city of St. Louis. Really grateful that over the past 4 years, the city in general really tried to adopt a prioritization of becoming less paper-based, not making people walk from building to building, and we are making a good faith effort to continue down this road with this expansion of electronic payment systems for the public as well. Next slide, please. We're now moving to page 389 in your booklet, but this is our 1110-719 Family, Community, and School Health. And our goals this year, as presented in this budget, are and again, I don't really need to define this because it's defined in the title. This is kind of what you think about as the department that really focuses on families. Men's health, individually and as a group, women's health, children's health, and school health and community health are all encompassed under this. But chronic diseases, which are a priority of this administration at the national level, are actually a priority of ours as well. We would hope that the future of the national intersection with the state and local is really understanding that we have a lot in common in our priorities. We care about chronic disease. We always care about making America healthy now and again. So it is my hope that we will continue to work together for those common goals. So our priorities for this division or bureau is events to aid women with abnormal breast and cervical numbers, number of birthing moms that have successful pregnancies through doula care, nurses, and CHAs. I've been so proud of the programmatic growth in this bureau specifically, because we've really used a data-focused approach to address prioritizing where we should be really in community and serving. We know that breast cancer has long been one of the leading causes of death in women, and we are looking at ways to continue to partner with trusted messengers in the community around these abnormal breast and cervical numbers. But really, our work around maternal child health has been unprecedented for this department. We have committed over $750,000 to doula training and care. If you were watching the news, you heard the incredible story of Caridi House, one of our new partners around doula-based care, care that is equity-driven for birthing moms. And so that is where we will continue to grow and really expand upon where we have invested. Our community outreach attendance is another priority. We really care about CPR and first aid certifications with a regional preventative approach to health services, as well as for a program for young Black boys and men. Smoking cessation classes will be completed for community and workers, programming focused on reducing childhood. Smoking affects so many aspects of health, more than just lung cancer that people think about. So we believe that it is a really great place to prioritize our efforts in the coming year. We also have prioritization for programming focused on reducing childhood obesity, advancing partnerships to encourage the use of pre- and postnatal services for childbearing age women as well. So the only thing that we would bring your attention to is that on page 389, the community health worker position that was reduced from the Department 7-1 budget is actually a filled position, so that will need to be addressed for accuracy. Before I go to questions, I'd like to be transparent in some of the requests that we are making. Next slide, please. For some of the corrections that we have found since we got this budget. It's always a little bit of a tight timeline for us to review and get ready for today, so we have submitted corrections and have some further.
Real quick, what was that position you said is already filled, but we need to maybe correct that?
Absolutely. So that is the community health worker, reflected on page 389. It was a reduced position. That position is now filled.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So first, when we talk about some of the corrections and requests, we'll start with 1110, 70002, which is the Healthcare Trust. We oppose the proposed movement of $400,000 for inmate health services to our trust. To date, we have only been charged with providing oversight. And let me be clear again, oversight. We do not provide direct clinical or medical services, and the initial agreement with the prior administration is that that money would be provided from outside the budget and not from within or given to us while other things are taken away. And so to date, we have only been charged with providing oversight of healthcare at CJC, and not only charged with oversight and not overall fiscal responsibility for CJC Health and Safety contractual service. We do not agree to the transfer of $936,000 to the 70002 line item, Healthcare Trust, to support the Office of Health Commissioner. So we would request that that be reviewed in alignment with the initial agreement and the overall support that public health needs in general. Next slide, please. So requests for correction include, in our review of the budget, we found a few items we would like corrected in order to provide a clearer picture of our proposed FY26 funding. First, on page 370, removal of $2,214,272 grant budget for 711-014. This funding was terminated by the federal government on March 24th, 2025. It was originally scheduled to end on July 31st, 2025, with potential for extension. Devastating, but still needs to be corrected. On page 381, removal of $757,191, also grant budget for 715-008. This grant ends on June 30th, 2025, and is now no longer being renewed. Page 198, and this is of the annual operating plan items of the FY26 plan. The graph local use tax budget by division we believe is incorrect and would request be relooked at. Percentages reflect 2025 figures, corrected graph reflected on slide 9 of this presentation. Next slide, please. Regarding the inmate medical budget, which is again our oversight and evaluation function for CJC, this information can be found on page 344 for the Health Trust Fund and 347 for the inmate medical personnel. As we said previously, $400,000 was removed from inmate medical budget to the Health Trust Fund. We would request that that be relooked at. DOH was tasked with providing oversight of healthcare at CJC in accordance with national NCCH standards. This oversight role did not include the assuming fiscal responsibility. The Department of Health role with inmate medical is to provide monitoring of the provider of medical services, who is PCUSA, in alignment with the NCCHC, who we went to, partnered with, and brought under contract on behalf of the city. This role is a priority amid increased public attention to ensure the highest quality of care for inmates housed at CJC. You have heard time and time again how much of a priority this is for the current administration. So since DOH's monitoring has started, we have seen a notable decrease in deaths and improvements across many aspects of healthcare. There has been a 67% decrease in 1 year alone in the annual number of detainee deaths, from the highest 6 in 2019, 5 in 2023, to the lowest of 2 in the year that we had medical oversight and evaluation in 2024. So we would respectfully request that this be looked at and that the original agreement and further support that CJC has told us they are happy to continue to support us would be relooked at, without that meaning that something else is removed from our budget. Regarding the Commissioner's Office, the transfer outline can be found on page 345 and 56. We are requesting to remove the $936,000 transfer outline item from the Healthcare Trust Fund 700002 and fund the Commissioner's Office 7110000 outright. The department considers this out of scope. Per Ordinance 65132, the Healthcare Trust Count, the Healthcare Trust Count, let me try that again. The Healthcare Trust Fund is dedicated to providing public health care services within the city of St. Louis. As stated on page 204 of the APP, the Commissioner's Office staff will focus on strategic planning, quality improvement, performance management, workforce development, and health equity for the whole Department of Health, which is the central tenets of what the charter and that ordinance calls for. Additionally, the Commissioner's Office staff focus on contract management and administration. Staff will also improve program monitoring and performance evaluation in line with accreditation standards from the Public Health Accreditation Board. These duties do not meet the criteria of public health care services, as they are department-focused, not community-minded. For adjustments of personnel and vacant positions, a number of positions were requested to be restored, deleted, upgraded, or downgraded as necessary to absorb the funding cuts and staff salaries, which we will get into on the following slide. Again, I want to just acknowledge how disruptive this is to a really intricate and difficult process that Paul Payne leads on behalf of the city and has saved the city's time and time again. We would not be asking for it if the federal landscape had not changed so dramatically. Next slide, please. We're almost there, folks. This is the last slide. So this is, again, in regard to the personnel schedule. You see the pages that we'll be referring to. So for page 352 and 3710, we're asking for deleting of the administrative 1 position and restoring the public information officer 1. We need the public information officer that was removed by the budget division. And then we also ask to delete the clerk typist in 1110 and the licensed practical nurse, and add the program manager 2 position. We need the new program manager 2 position that was requested but not removed. This is critical for our new and already small behavioral health bureau. And we also are asking from 1110 for the public health program supervisor to be replaced by a health marketing administrator. The health marketing administrator position is essential for our ability to fulfill FAB accreditation. It was a miracle, and I don't use that term lightly, for us to get reaccreditation, and not just to be reaccredited, but without a corrective action plan, which is unheard of, which reflects that we were reaccredited at one of the highest levels nationally. We were told so verbally and in written communication by FAB, the national body. I do not believe this department could do that again. What I had to ask them to do, the nights, the weekends, it was unfathomable. This position is not one we asked for lightly. On page 372, we are requesting a downgrade from Public Health Nurse 3 to a Public Health Nurse 2, and that is to accommodate the upgrade above. Next slide, please. Before I pause for questions, I do want to say, because this is my last time here, that I have so many people to thank. While I am very unapologetic and transparent about I come here year after year fighting for public health, that is not in opposition. And I hope we can get away from adversarial and confrontational language. I can say that the administration cares about public health. I can say that the prior administration supported me more than I've ever been supported in my career. I can say that Paul Payne has saved this city time and time again. And I can say public health deserves better. It needs better, and we need to find innovative ways and work together with this phenomenal leadership team that has come together time and time again to try to do what is best. The time calls for urgency, it calls for flexibility. I was not a health director that scurried out the back door. I provided notice, I was professionalism in how I left. And contrary to some of the rumors, there is no bad blood. There is no drama. Let's normalize a fantastic leader choosing on her own terms. But let us also normalize leaving right. And what leaving right looks like for me is painstaking time to build a plan to not only save this department, but to elevate it. If we care about all of the work that has gone into increasing the work of this department, then this budget needs help. And it needs help for now and in further ENA committee meetings. I am so grateful that the prior administration, the current administration, and Paul Payne have worked with us. They haven't always liked us, but they're professional and they work with us. And I hope that you will continue to support Commissioner Anwuri, Emmanuel Kani, and my incredible team long after I've left next week. Thank you so much for your time.
I'm gonna go a little out of order real quick because I know the president has somewhere to go here shortly. So I'm gonna start with President Green.
Thank you, and I apologize, I have a 1 o'clock, so I'm going to make it very quick. But could you please send to the committee and to my office the slides that you had today, and also the transition plans that you've provided to both administrations, so we can kind of see the nitty-gritty of what your plans are and work to incorporate that in the budget process?
Absolutely. I'll ask Commissioner Anwuri to send that over in Drive. So what we'll get is slides, the supplemental corrections we made, the cost-neutral federal plan, and the more intricate spreadsheets that you put together that will allow President Green and her office to review those. If there's anything else that you require, Commissioner Anwuri would be more than happy to provide those.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, President Green.
Not a problem. I had to come and say hi.
Thanks.
Alderwoman Sanye. And again, just to committee members, I know I never try to limit anything. We do have a 2 o'clock. So if folks can ask a core questions, because we won't have this fabulous director soon. So let's get as much out of her as we can with the very core ones. And then if there are any pending ones, please, she's around, so we could be able to reach out to her. But just note that we are a little bit on the time limit, and I got comments too as chair, and I usually go last, so I want to make sure I get mine in too. Alderwoman Sanye. We'll come back to Alderman Browning.
Hey, thank you. I think Alderwoman Sanye is on now. I'll let her go first.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Right, afternoon. Good afternoon, Dr. Mahdi. Just always going to start by just thanking you for all your service, all of your work here. I really want to just take a second to just acknowledge your message. I thank God that the only thing I've heard since the news that you would be resigning came is good things and people talking about your transformative leadership. And if anything, just a sense of sadness of understanding just what a jewel and what a gift your expertise and your leadership has been to public health and to the city of St. Louis. I will rave all day long forever in amazement of what you've been able to do in the department of creating entire bureaus, of responding to medical emergency crisis within within the CJC. Just incredible transformative leadership that really is centered around public health and equity. So I really just want to start by commending you for that and acknowledging too, which I said on Friday, that I am also honored to have your example of being a leader who has done her time, who has served her due diligence, and is now taking the time to do what she would like to do. And what an honor it is that you wanted to serve us, that you wanted to help to transform public health in our city and to help transform the Department of Health in our city. And I think you have done that, and you have done a phenomenal job. And I commend you for being able to leave on your terms. And I know for a fact that it has to be peaceful, because I don't imagine that there is a leader that would see what you've done and would, not want to support you and not want to keep you for as long as possible.
Thank you so much, Alderwoman.
You're welcome. I can just get straight to it, and your presentation made it very easy to get into. There are a lot of things in your budget that stuck out to me, and I really appreciated you just kind of breaking down the differences that are, the things that were funded by kind of the local use tax and other sources versus what has come through for grants, and just also acknowledge you and your team's probably rightful anxiety and feelings around what it would look like to be able to operate in the city of St. Louis and just having a stronger need for resources. One of the things in your presentation that you really talked about was both the inmate medical budget and the commissioner's office. I think your presentation is pretty straightforward and to the point. But I know specifically you made mention that there was $400,000 that was moved from the inmate medical budget to the healthcare trust fund. Can you talk about that decision making or that process, and what the funds being in the healthcare trust fund versus being in the inmate medical budget looks like from a implementation standpoint?
Thank you so much. I'm going to provide Commissioner Anwuri an opportunity to just make first comments about that specific $400,000, and I'll add any as necessary.
Thank you, Dr. Mahdi. So last year.
Commissioner, if you could just state your first and last name for the record, please.
Yes, Commissioner Anwuri, Victoria Anwuri.
Commissioner.
Victoria Anwuri.
Gotcha. And you can proceed with that.
Okay. So in FY25, we were given a $2 million moved from CJC into our budget. This year, we had that same budget, and but $400,000 was taken from inmate medical and moved to our trust, which means that it's coming from Department of Health funding rather than CJC's funding.
We have had a great collaboration with CJC, and they had made and have always made clear to us that because of how significant the help and leadership we've provided is, that they're more than happy to discuss transfer. So our hope is that this would be looked at with a closer eye, especially in light of everything else that health has to absorb in the next year and respond to, as we have already responded to with the federal climate. Does that help, Alderwoman?
It does.
Thanks.
It does. I'm definitely happy to hear that there's been collaboration and already been some discussion. We're very curious about if if they have been talked to about that change coming and how it's impacting, how they felt about it. I know it's under new leadership right now, and I know one of the priorities I've heard from them over and over again is obviously just the priority of making sure that our detainees are able to get the care that they need so that they can make it to their trial dates and wherever else their outcomes from the criminal justice system will take them. In the interest of time, I will just get to my next question. You also have a request in your budget about downgrading from the public health nurse to, I'm trying to see if I can find the specific number, to, maybe you're going from public health nurse type 3 to public health nurse type 2? Is that?
That is correct.
And is that just to help support your other requests financially?
Absolutely. We're just trying to be proactive and finding ways, because we understand how disruptive this is. Again, the work that the budget division has to do is, has to be commended at the highest level, especially with the size team that they have. So we are trying to be as proactive as possible and finding some solutions, and that was one of them.
Okay, and I don't have any other questions about that slide. My only other question to you is about I know one of the things that you did start was a community outreach initiative, as well as a mental health bureau. So I just wanted to make sure I asked you, is there anything we should be aware of in your budget in regards to those two community measures that have been started?
Thank you so much for asking. Those two new bureaus under my tenure have been so imperative. If you read our annual report, which was a new endeavor I started in 2022. As you know, this board has received a monthly report and an annual report since then, and we now provide it to over 500 partners across the city in an effort to be transparent and collaborative. In that report, this new Community Outreach Bureau in 1 year satisfied over 13,000 individual community events. I cannot underscore what that does to build trust, relationships, networking opportunities. Similarly, the Behavioral Health Bureau has a coalition of trusted partners in behavioral health in the city, and over 30 of them meet monthly and have committed to it. You usually see something like that start but then fall off. Nobody has time to meet after work, but they make time. So it is these types of partnership, community outreach that really accounts for those incredible numbers that you saw in the annual report. We feel great about it. Behavioral Health Bureau hit the ground running. You've never seen, a bureau that's only just a year old with the kind of metrics. So they were probably the happiest bureau to lean into that maintenance phase I spoke about. So outside of the few requests that we made here, that bureau is doing well. In the future, the commissioner may need support in looking at federal funding, as a lot of their operational budget comes from federal grants or funding that may come to an end in the coming years. But that is not a discrete concern of ours immediately. The same for our community outreach. My concern is for some of the community health worker positions that were not included in next year's budget. They have made the necessary adjustments to be able to continue to do the work of community outreach. But if we are serious about maintaining and growing community outreach, that will also need to be looked at. Again, though, we try to be really thoughtful about representing the priorities for changes or additional asks here. And if you don't see them, it's because we are willing to make the necessary adjustments, knowing that even though people don't think we think this, we know we're not the only department in the city. We know the world doesn't revolve around us. We know that our partners have a lot of priorities and needs themselves. So we made a lot of adjustments in other divisions to accommodate these more pressing and urgent requests.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that clarity, Dr. Mahdi. It is your last time being in front of us, and I feel a lot of ways about that. But again, thank you so much for your service, and it has been an absolute delight to partner with you, to collaborate with you, to help make sure you got that receptionist last year. And again, just every time I get the record and you're here, I just want you to know that the great things about leaders such as yourselves is that your work lives on beyond you. And that's exactly what good leadership does. And I am completely committed to equity and public health in our city. And thank you again.
Thank you so much, Alderman.
Alderman Browning?
Thank you, Dr. Mahdi. I think you answered a lot of my questions because of your very, very thorough presentation. And that's what we can always count on you for, is to come in front of us and really just be as detailed as possible about the needs of your department and fighting for those needs. I've spoken of your passion before, and it is a passion that I will try to carry on because I think even though you won't be in the building anymore, we really need that passion in our government because it means a lot to the people that we represent and the people that we serve. I don't really have any questions for you anymore because, again, you answered them all with your presentation. I just want to say we will miss you, and we wish you the best of luck going forward.
Thank you so much, Alderman Browning. And you should know that you hold the record for the last ever ward meeting I had. And I don't think that was by chance. What we talked about and what your residents spoke about and that shared passion we have is one that I hope will just continue to resonate throughout all the wards as we continue to do this difficult work together. So thank you so much.
I think the 14th Ward just announced we're having a meeting Monday, and we'd like the health department to be there. So we have to check that record. Alderman Devotee.
I'm just getting to know you, Dr. Motti, so maybe we need to have one in the 5th Ward on Tuesday.
On Tuesday?
Why did I say
Take
this?
note of
There'll
that.
just be a ward meetings until
You
my
opened
life.
up the can of worms. I just want to talk maybe bigger picture.
Yeah.
Your presentation was wonderful. Thank you very much. You talked about the need or the necessity to think innovatively with respect to funding. We have 2 world-class medical schools, medical institutions within our boundaries here in the city of St. Louis. Can you educate me, as the new guy, about potential opportunities for partnership with both Washington University, that School of Medicine, but also St. Louis University?
Thank you both. You are sitting with 2 alumni of Washington University. I was in the Division of Infectious Diseases. I had a clinic at their infectious disease clinic. I was also in the leadership of the Office of DEIJ as well as an associate program director. And your commissioner here was in leadership there for many, many years as the 2nd ranking leader in the Institute for Public Health. So we have strong ties here to WashU. So just a little bit of historic context. When I moved to the city, it was important for me to reflect parity. I knew that I was very comfortable with WashU. That was my sort of educational home and where I got my first big girl job as an infectious diseases doctor. But it was important to understand and to really map out the landscape of all the hospitals in the region. So one of the first projects I embarked upon with my small but mighty then epidemiology bureau was to ask them to do just that. What are the systems that we have for academic care? And so one of the things that I love is that we do have these 2 world-class systems in SLU and in WashU, but there are other systems in community. Our federally qualified health centers are some of the best in the nation. They have literally upheld public health in the city because for reasons unbeknownst to me, we sunsetted clinical services for our health department. Let me say that again. We chose in the city to sunset clinical services for the city. So when the prior administration inherited this health department, they were as shocked as I was that I was being asked to lead a department that has no clinical services. In contrast, my partners in the county have a health department 5 times the size of mine with 5 times the budget, and they have their own standalone FQHC. It is absolutely unacceptable. So part of the reasons I come back and I fought for ARPA dollars, and I'm thankful to the prior administration, and I'm really disappointed to see the public health literally reflect so far in the plan $0 and 0 cents of future RAMS funding, is because of that deficit and the lack of clinical services. So one of the things that I worked on prior to hiring our commissioner was to reach out to all of the healthcare systems and really think about innovative ways to partner. I came up with a tiered approach to some partnerships where we constantly get young people, and since I've been here, I average maybe 10 interns a week who are like, Dr. Motti, can we intern with you? Can we observe with you? And we just don't have the capacity or. So we kind of built a landscape where we came up with these bidirectional contracts where we asked for much longer in kind to address the workforce capacity issue that public health has. At the end of 2021, this country lost 150,000 public health workers due to, and in part due to the impact of COVID. That number was projected to be 250,000 by the end of this year, and even more with federal cuts. So workforce capacity is where I thought first would be a great place to partner with them. With the academic centers really leaning into their expertise, but also, quite frankly, their oversight and maybe babysitting skills with getting together one large cadre of interns that they would oversee. I'm proud to announce the first of its kind partnership that we have that started just last week. Between Washington University and Harris Stowe University, which is the only HBCU in the city and is incredible. And so WashU provides funding for paid internship to Harris Stowe students to then intern at the Department of Health. But then we hired Commissioner Anwuri, and she came with a wealth of experience and actually had been overseeing many of the partnerships between us and WashU. So she's transferred that leadership on the other side to really push along clean up, maintain, and think of innovative ways. From a parity perspective, it was important for outreach to SLU. We had a really great program with them from Academic University of public health initiatives that would help us with training, with data projects, and with other discrete public health projects. We need to do more with other healthcare institutions in the region, quite frankly, but I'm really encouraged by some of the beginnings of what we have done between WashU, SLU, and Harris-Stowe, UMSL, and others that I didn't get to mention. However, I love your suggestion because when I went to lobby for public health in the city of St. Louis twice now in the last 6 months in Washington, and met specifically with high-ranking offices on Capitol Hill on behalf of the city and behalf of this health department, lobbyists and those offices were telling us that this is, number one, really a ground game, and number two, we're going to have to get really innovative about where to plug in these dollars until we can recoup them in the next couple of years. Some of the devastation that's already done and being threatened to done will take decades to fix. So it's going to require even more innovation about models of funding, models of resourcing, models of filling those workforce capacity gaps with WashU and other, with WashU, SLU, Harris-Stowe, UMSL, and other folks in the region. However, they are dealing with their own crisis with devastating NIH federal cuts and other cuts. So it's right now everybody's kind of stunned, trying to stabilize their own ships. And I hope soon we will move into a phase where we can have some of those innovative discussions. But I really love that question. Commissioner, do you have anything to add? Okay.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Welcome to the team.
That was all, Alderman?
Yes, sir. You seem surprised.
I'll save the comment for another time. We got a few more weeks of Budget Committee. First off, I want to, I think we made this very clear Friday at the Board of Aldermen just how we as this Board of Aldermen, but also personally myself, just how thankful we are and have been lucky to have you. And I'm still praying to the spirits to be that maybe a decision happens where, you're going just for a little bit and you come back around the corner block, because you have really, you have been not only intentional about what health looked like in the city of St. Louis, you've not only been intentional making sure that when we talk about health, we are being strategic on making sure that we are helping, of course, everyone in the city, but we have to help the ones that are most vulnerable. The programs that you have stood up, the community outreach that you have done, the award meetings that you and your team have committed to and been out in the community making happen has gone a very long way. When you see directors leave either due to new administrations or, they moving on to some bigger and better, you don't see the flowers, I think, the way that folks have been giving you your flowers. And that speaks to your leadership. It speaks to your commitment to the city. It speaks to your passion. No matter if you have come in front of this budget committee, no matter if you come in front of public safety, the passion that you have for health and the potential, I think, that you see that the health department can go in is something that will be missed and continually needed. Whoever try to fill those giant high heels and put on those amazing pearls that are shiny, because that is what the legacy that you are leaving behind, and super excited for the next steps. I don't have any questions either. I think, like Alderman Browning said, out of all departments, this have probably been the most thorough and depth department that I believe have been given things that we need to do from the Budget Committee to make sure that health is being addressed. I do have one question. Going back to the CJC, if I heard it right, the money that is paying for medical care for the CJC, is that coming out of the health department budget?
It is not.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's two buckets now, but the original agreement was that we made clear that we didn't have capacity or, quite frankly, funding to fund something extra, that we were willing to come in, and we were told overwhelmingly every cent of that money would always come from CJC and not
on some switcheroo or some trade where, you know, it seems like it's coming from them, but we're going to cut here to kind of balance the books type thing, that this would be in addition to, because we were going out of our way to provide this service. The service, obviously, is going well thus far, and we just want to ensure that we get that additional support. Especially, and so it comes from the place of honoring that agreement, the way that it was stated, but also, quite frankly, because we have always needed more, and we need more for this moment at this time as well. So that's it, but 2 pots.
2 pots. Is those funds of any of those pots coming from the CJC?
All CJC. But that 400,000 is the one that they're asking us to this year.
Okay, so that 400,000, again, I think marching orders probably needs to be coming from the CJC. You didn't say it, I said it, okay.
And Doug Burris has been nothing but very supportive, very willing, all of the above.
Yes, Doug, I mean, Acting Commissioner Barris, I'm so impressed with him. And,
Yes.
you know, it just seemed like the stars was aligning with him coming in and you in the health department and what you was doing with the medical care. And I know how intentional he is about putting humanity with the individuals that are in the CJC. And I was just excited to see what y'all was going to cook up together, because I think when you put both of those minds and passion and love for people in those roles, we could have been, I think, the state of the arts of how healthcare is done in the CJC.
I couldn't agree with you more. I was so grateful to have been given that opportunity by Mayor Jones, and that intentional opportunity to bring Doug in. I think you haven't seen that type of leadership and intention. There's a long way to go. That place still needs so much care and attention, but I'm thankful that we were both given that opportunity by the prior administration to do this work.
Okay, before I go back to Alderwoman Sonia, I want to say, I do also want to thank, again, you, Dr. Mahdi, you've laid out a roadmap, I think, of what, and I am challenging this committee to look at the recommendations from the health department that was laid out and to figure out what we can do, because I think a lot of times we do, you know, we sit on these committees and we appreciate every department, we appreciate every worker in the city of St. Louis, and I know historically we always give flowers to the health department, and I'm challenging this committee not to just say it with words, with action as we get closer to our amendment process. I want to also thank Mr. Julian, who have been in conversations from the Mayor's Office Director of Operations on figuring out ways that we can, at some point down the line, make sure that some of these proposals that Dr. Mahdi has brought forward actually come to a reality. And I'm looking forward to working with you to make sure we get 100% of all those things necessary. And we'll be having a meeting soon. But again, this is one of those departments when we talk about public safety a lot. I just want to remind people healthcare is public safety. We are literally in another healthcare scare with measles, which, as Dr. Mahdi mentioned, was an outbreak at Union Station. So this is a time, if no other time, to take this department serious. And even though you will not be here, I don't have to worry about it because I know your number, I know how to get you. And I'm going to work hard as a chair if I make it my priority for this department to try to get as much as possible this budget cycle, because I know how critical it is.
Thank you, Alderman and Chair. And I just wanted to say one last thing. There's work to be done on this budget. There's work to be done in ENA, but I'm going to sow a seed for RAMS money as well, because that conversation is still on ice. $0.00, unacceptable. Health doesn't require a lot. A little piece of that pie is my hope that some of what I've learned today will be a all the way around approach. Adjustments to this budget, adjustments at ENA, adjustments for RAMS. We can do it.
Alderwoman Sonia.
Just a follow-up question that was actually kind of hinted at before, given, I know you mentioned the RAM settlement funds and you mentioned the potential of clinical services, and I just wanted to see if that was kind of what you thought and if you have put together any information about financially what that might look like, and also ask that the same thing that President Green asked before, maybe you can just send that to the chair as well and he can send it to the rest of us. And then just my question to you, in addition to the clinical services, is, does your department have what you believe it needs if we were to figure out some of your requests to meet the public health crisis that is happening right now with the measles outbreak? And, obviously there could be other outbreaks given the direction, the political direction and the investment direction that the country is and isn't going in.
Thank you so much for asking. I'll answer your second question first, and then I'll end with the Rams question. For your second question, our department is not ready to meet this moment with the current budget, and that is no fault of this administration or Paul Payne, because the budget that we gave him in January, we didn't know what was coming. So I'm very grateful to Julian, to Paul Payne, and to others, and to Alderman Aldridge, who've been working tirelessly. I'm talking nights, weekends. Didn't know I'd be texting with Julian Nix on Mother's Day, but we were. And that's the kind of leader he is. And so there is a lot of work to meet that moment, because absolutely not, the current budget would not be enough for us to meet this moment and some of the other issues in the city. As it pertains to Rams, I want to first publicly thank you for your leadership. You were given what I think is an impossible assignment to help lead that. There were over a year of presentations, of public input, and of many meetings. There were not many agreements, because this is a pot of money that everyone believes they should have a part of. And I'm going to throw health in, and I mean it. Sick and dead people cannot take care of public safety, basic services, streets, trash, potholes. And while there may not have been as overwhelming a response from the people, we as leaders are, quite frankly, hired to be experts in what is needed. Health requires a tiny piece of the pot, and that piece of the pot could grow and do a lot. I did submit a proposal for how the health department could be supported through the Rams money, small amount, very small amount, to address some of our current issues, but also the future of bringing back clinical. It is just unfathomable, unethical, and quite frankly sad that families in the city of St. Louis cannot drive to their health department and be seen by any clinical provider. We are one of the only health departments in the nation. It is a failure that this was allowed to happen, and the prior administration and this administration did not deserve to inherit that. We need to fix it, and this is the last pot of money that we have. I will forward the proposal I gave, and I want us to get away from the excuses that if the loud majority don't say public health, that it then gets $0.00. For a small amount of money and an investment, one of the things the commissioner and I was put out an RFP for us to get support in looking what that landscape would look like. So if there's a small pot of money that's allowed to grow, we will have business plans, we will have assessments, we will have thoughtful considerations about how this is not disruptive to our clinical providers in the region to support such a plan. But I want to say once again that if there is a final Rams plan that has $0.00 for public health, that is unacceptable to me. So that would be the answer to the two questions. Hopefully that helps.
That helps. I know a lot of what was going on behind the scenes, but like you mentioned, there was a lot going on in the process, and your proposal never made it to me. So yeah, I would love to see that.
And I will make sure you get it, because I think you would really enjoy this proposal. It speaks to a lot of the things that I know are your priorities, and so we will definitely make sure that happens.
Thank you.
All right, I think that is all from our department. Again, thank you, Dr. Mahdi, for being you. And thank you to your team, because I know you always uplift your team to, leaders only as strong as their team members. And you have, clearly through your leadership, have really supported the individuals to make sure that there's a framework laid out to make sure that this health department continues to succeed. And hopefully we could do everything possible from this budget, not hopefully, we will do everything possible from this budget committee to make sure that we do what we can with supporting health. And like you say, I think I texted Julian last night, like around 11 or 10 o'clock. He's been getting it, and he's just been great. But thank you, Dr. Mahdi, it's your moment. So thank you for everything.
Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, with that, Madam Clerk, any acknowledgement of written testimony?
We have none.
Announcements, tomorrow we will be back at it again at 9:30 here in the Kennedy Room. I think we're starting off with streets, and we have several other departments as well. Outside of that announcement, I feel like I'm missing something as an announcement. Nope. I'd like to make note. Oh, yes, Saturday meeting will be at the Thomas Dunn Learning Center. This will be a moment for another public input from community members to weigh in on the budget. We will be starting at 10 o'clock for the Saturday meeting. And with that, I will go for excused members. I just want to make note for this that I will not be excusing the Alderwoman from the 12th from today's meeting. And I will move to adjourn.
So moved. Okay.
Second.